Well, Harold, thank you for that incredible introduction and for your friendship. I remember when I first thought about running for Senate, I took a trip to D.C., and of course I called Harold and said, I want to sit down and talk with you and get your advice and your counsel. And I talked with you about the challenges we face and your vision for the future of our country, and got your advice about how I might be a part of that. And we won, and I cannot thank you enough for your friendship and your support. So can we just hear it for Harold Schaefer? And it's so great to be in the House of Labor. I want to thank all of you for your leadership. We have had many challenging times over the years. We continue to have challenging times in front of us. And for those in a position of leadership, we know that we can never show weakness. We know that the people who look up to us, your members, look at you every day. They look in your eyes, and they want to see that we've figured it all out. They look at us, and we know we must show strength and not let on that we may not know what tomorrow might look like. But the one thing we always know and convince them of is we are prepared to fight. And I want to thank you for the work that each of you has done over so many years of ups and downs for you at a local level, at a state level, and at a national level. It is upon your shoulders that so many people stand. And as each of you know, the work that you do, not only as a profession, but as individual leaders, is the work that benefits people that for the most part you will never meet, people that for the most part will never know your name, but are directly benefited because of your work every day. And I want to thank you for that leadership and that strength. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge my homeboy, Lou Paulson, the head of the California firefighters, and all of my California family for always being so supportive and an incredible leader in California. We have often talked about the fact that folks from outside of the state will come into the state thinking that if they can weaken our system in California as it relates to protecting the rights of working people, they think that if they can do it in California, they can do it anywhere. Lou, you've been a great leader for all of the state and every profession with the work that you have done. So thank you for that. And also I want to recognize Frank Lima. And thank you for all that you are. So here's the deal, IAFF. I believe that we are at a pivotal moment in the history of our country. I think of this as being an inflection point in the history of this country. I often think of it as being similar to that moment in time that my parents met when they were marching and shouting in the civil rights movement of the 1960s in Oakland and Berkeley, California. I think this is a moment in time that is similar to a moment in time that many of us have experienced in our personal lives, where the circumstances and the situation required us to look in a mirror and with furrowed brow ask a question, who are we? I believe this is that moment in time for our country, where collectively we are being required to look in a mirror, and with furrowed brow we are asking this question, who are we? And Harold, I believe the answer is a good one. I believe we are a great country. I believe we are a great country. And part of what makes us great is we are a country that was founded on certain ideals, on certain promises. We are a country that was founded on the ideal that we will always be the shining example of what a democracy looks like. And the spirit behind that is captured in those words we spoke in 1776. that we are all and should be treated as equals. And I believe this is a moment in time then that is requiring us to fight for the ideals of our country. And when I think about that, I think about who you are as the firefighters of America. So here's the truth that I know about America's firefighters and paramedics. It was you who ran up the stairs as the Twin Towers and the Pentagon burned and crumbled. It was you who rescued vulnerable people who were stranded during Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Sandy. It was you, the firefighters and paramedics of America, who in 2013 took on California's Rim Fire, the third largest fire in our state's history, and fought an entire year to put it out. And it was the firefighters and paramedics who battled blazes in Yarnell, Arizona, which tragically took the lives of 19 of your fellow firefighters. Firefighters and paramedics responded to the attack in San Bernardino, and I personally witnessed the courage of you there. And most recently, it was you who were part of the team helping the 200,000 California residents evacuate their homes during the Oroville Dam overflow. There's a reason I believe that firefighters are consistently among the most desired and respected professionals in America. We look up to men and women like you because when everyone else is running out of danger, you're running into it. And I know that you do this, whether everyone or no one is watching. When the fire alarm goes off or a call comes over the radio, you respond. And you never ask when that call comes in, is it a Democrat or a Republican making the call? You know a burning building doesn't care how somebody voted and certainly doesn't care itself about how anybody voted in the last election. And so I say to you and your families, thank you. We owe you a debt of gratitude. And society then should not expect you to shoulder the burden of your responsibility alone. And the truth is, leaders in Washington need to live up to their end of the bargain. It's time you were given the resources that you need. It's time that we reauthorize the SAFER and FIRE grants so that local departments can have certainty that they will be adequately staffed and have state-of-the-art equipment and training. It's wrong to suggest that a fire department take on and continue the responsibility of protecting a community when you don't even have enough resources to fund a 24-hour staff or purchase a truck that's capable of reaching the tallest building in town. So let me commit to you today that as a member of the United States Senate, I won't just be a reliable vote for you. I will be there as a fierce advocate for your needs. And here's where I believe we stand as of now. Last week, the President addressed Congress and spoke about, quote, making our communities safer for everyone. Well, to do that, I say to all of us in DC, provide the necessary support to those who are on the front lines and reauthorize those grants. And do it now. And don't dare have a budget battle or impasse before replacing outdated fire trucks or hiring the staff firefighters need to do their jobs. And those are just the basics. Let's get the basics done. Those are the basics. And then there is more. Let's think about it. Our support for you has to be also about workplace safety, collective bargaining, and solving issues. Issues, some of which might seem unrelated to the work you do every day. For example, I believe it's time to ensure every American has access to addiction and mental health services so that a firefighter is not the first point of care. That's a firefighter's issue. It's time we realize America's infrastructure is a public safety issue, and we fix America's crumbling roads and bridges and rails. That's a firefighter's issue. And it's past time we address the threat of climate change. To people who don't believe climate change is a national emergency, I say ask a firefighter who braved the Big Sur fire last July, or one from northern Georgia, where a forest fire burned 27,000 acres last November. That's a firefighter's issue. And it's time every worker in this country have the dignity of fair wages and benefits and the unfettered right to collectively bargain. That's a firefighter's issue. So, folks, lately, firefighters and other public sector employees have been under attack at the state and federal level by politicians looking to balance their budgets on the backs of working people. I know Tom Perez was here before me to talk about that. Well, I say this, balanced budgets, yes, of course, balanced budgets, but not by cutting wages and benefits and reducing the bargaining power of working people. So let's just be clear about what that means. Public employees, whether they are firefighters or meat inspectors, teachers or police officers, are not the problem. Heroes who running to burning homes are not the reason our financial house is not in order, and you deserve better than to be blamed. Instead, you deserve to climb the ladder of opportunity into the middle class just like everyone else without politicians cutting you down. You deserve and have earned overtime pay and fair wage protections. You deserve and have earned health care benefits that cover everything from a third-degree burn to chronic illness. And you shouldn't have to pay a Cadillac tax just to receive the comprehensive coverage that your dangerous jobs demand. And you have withstood a shameful attack on workers' rights and have nonetheless stood up for collective bargaining rights. And let everyone outside this room be clear. You, the firefighters of our nation, have been a leader and a clear leader in saying labor must stick together. So, because you could have stood alone and watched it happen to others. And you stood courageously and said, labor must stick together. So that when the governor of Wisconsin tried to divide and conquer, it was you who stood shoulder to shoulder with all your brothers and sisters and said, an attack on one is an attack on all. It was you that when the governor of Iowa, overhauled the state's collective bargaining law, making it harder for workers to negotiate wages, health care, and work conditions. You that pointed out the destructive impact this would have. It was you when the governor of Michigan made clear that he wants to turn his back on the state's promise of a secure retirement and take aim at retiree health benefits, you who joined with police officers to say, no way, not a chance. And when the governor of Missouri became the latest politician to sign a right-to-work law, you called it out for what it is, a right to work for less. So I'm here to say we've got a fight on our hands, and nobody knows how to fight like a firefighter. And we all know what's at stake. The stakes are high. And what I believe is at stake fundamentally is the basic idea that in the United States of America, this beautiful country, that our economy should work for everyone, no matter what their profession, no matter where they live. And it's interesting, you know, I've been in DC now about 8 weeks. And it's interesting to hear the conversations that take place in the halls in this town. There's this theory people have been talking about, saying that this country is more divided than ever. In fact, I was home last week and I spoke at my daughter's school. She's 17, a bunch of seniors, and they said, "You're back from Washington. How can we fix a divided America?" This was the question. Guys, I reject that notion. I reject the premise of that question and that perspective. Because here's how I think about this. I know, based on my career as a prosecutor, based on my career as a person living in this country, there is so much more than unites us than divides us. There is so much more we have in common than one separates us. And I reject the notion then that we are a divided America. Because here's the deal. I know that the thing that wakes people up at 3 o'clock in the morning is not defined by whether they are a Republican or a Democrat. The thing that wakes us up at 3 o'clock in the morning, whether we're talking about the Latina mom in East LA, the African American teenager in Baltimore, the white steel worker, the thing that wakes us all up at 3 o'clock in the morning is about our personal health, the health of our children, the health of our parents, whether we've got a job, can keep a job, or get a job, whether we're going to be able to pay the bills at the end of the month, keep a roof over the head, or retire with dignity. That's what wakes people up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so we have to reject this notion that we are divided when there is so much more that unifies and keeps us connected with each other. And so here's what I say to these politicians who would engage in this. Well, I can't say it here, but it's nonsense. It's nonsense. And we as people who take on the title and all that comes with being called a leader are doing those people who look at us to guide and lead, we are doing them a disservice when we suggest that everybody exists in these little, neat little boxes, instead of understanding that we're all in it together. And so, going forward, let's think about what we can do as leaders, knowing that we are unified, knowing that we are fundamentally fighting for the same things. I believe that we must strengthen our coalition. We must reject this notion that people are living in these separate boxes with narrow interests within those separate boxes. We must demand that on issues like the Affordable Care Act, that it is irresponsible to take away access to health benefits for 20 million Americans who are relying on their ability to have access to meaningful health care to be able to live with dignity. We must push back against anyone who would suggest that it is in any of our best interest to roll back the rules that were designed to prevent Wall Street from abuse and another financial crisis. We must together agree that we are a nation that was founded by immigrants and with immigrants in mind, and we must protect them and not support a legislation or policy that tears families apart. We together must stand up and say that we reject an idea that leaders would weaken the laws that require polluters to be held accountable, that allow financial institutions that are profiting off of committing fraud against our students, that we will stand up against that and hold them accountable. These are the things that are really at stake that impact the majority of Americans. And again, those folks that are impacted could care less if you look or thought of them as a Democrat or a Republican. So in closing, I'll say this. I think the fight ahead, the challenge ahead, is going to be a tough one. I think it is going to be a challenge. It will not be easy to remind people that we're all in this together. It is not going to be easy to stand up and be a voice for them and let them look at us knowing that we feel we've got it all together and got it under control. It will not be easy. But on this eve, IAFF, of your 100th anniversary, let's remember, back in 1918, firefighters worked 24-hour shifts without a break. Wages for firefighters could be as low as 29 cents an hour, almost half of what miners and construction workers earned. But thankfully, we've come a long way since then. And I know that the leaders in this room will not go back without a fight. And here's the playlist: collective bargaining, safe workplaces, living wages, guaranteed pensions, reliable health benefits, and fair leave policies. All of those are on the table. All of those are at stake. But I have no doubt that the work that we do now, the fights that we take on now, will renew these rights for future generations. And it's interesting, somebody recently was talking to me about this theory. I hadn't heard of it before. They called it the Cascading Up Theory. Cascading, I thought you might appreciate this water. But Cascading Up Theory. And it's basically a theory that if one species goes extinct, then it leads to other species going extinct. So simply put, if one group is harmed, then others will pay the price, right? That all ships rise and fall together. So that's where you come in. The IAFF, all of you, because what you do is more than fighting a fire or fighting for workplace safety and retirement benefits. You improve the quality of life for so many people through the professional work that you do every day and the leadership that you provide this nation about what should be the rights of working people. And it's why you know, it's why you are so admired and respected in this country. And it's why children in every corner of the country grow up and say, I want to be like him or her, or I want to do what they do because of the work that you do with such nobility and honor and courage. And so I close by saying thank you. Thank you for your leadership, for your sacrifice, for your service. There's so many people counting on you, and with good reason, because you truly are part of the great leadership of our country and our democracy. Thank you.